Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up week 26 and the first week of series 4 of today's Tolkien Times with Silmarillion Saturday. Now, Saturdays are our chance to revisit the history and legends of the Elder Days, whether from the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, or more. And as we start this new series, I want to spend some time talking about heavenly bodies. Yellowface and Whiteface, as Gollum calls them, the sun and the moon. And to do that, we'll spend the next few Silmarillion Saturdays in Chapter 11 of the Quintus Silmarillion of the Sun and Moon and the Hiding of Valinor. It is told that after the flight of Melkor, the Valar sat long unmoved upon their thrones in the Ring of Doom. But they were not idle, as Fëanor declared in the folly of his heart. For the Valar may work many things with thought rather than with hands, and without voices, in silence, they may hold counsel one with another. Thus they held vigil in the night of Valinor, and their thought passed back beyond Ea and forth to the end, yet neither power nor wisdom assuaged their grief, and the knowing of evil in the hour of its being. And they mourned not more for the death of the trees than for the marring of Fëanor, of the works of Melkor one of the most evil. For Fëanor was made the mightiest in all parts of body and mind, in valor, in endurance, in beauty, in understanding, in skill, in strength, and in subtlety alike, of all the children of Iluvatar, and a bright flame was in him. The works of wonder for the glory of Arda that he might otherwise have wrought, only Manwë might in some measure conceive. And it was told by the Vanyar, who held vigil with the Valar, that when the messengers declared to Manwë the answers of Fëanor to his heralds, Manwë wept and bowed his head. But at that last word of Fëanor, that at the least the Noldor should do deeds to live in song forever, he raised his head, as one that hears a voice far off, and he said, "So shall it be. Dear bought those songs shall be accounted, and yet shall be well bought, for the price could be no other. Thus, even as Eru spoke to us, shall beauty not before conceived be brought into Ea, and evil yet good to have been." But Mandas said, "And yet remain evil. To me shall Fëanor come soon." But when at last the Valar learned that the Noldor had indeed passed out of Aman and were come back into Middle-earth, they arose and began to set forth in deeds those counsels which they had taken in thought for the redress of the evils of Melkor. Then Manwë bade Yavanna and Nienna to put forth all their powers of growth and healing, and they put forth all their powers upon the trees. But the tears of Nienna availed not to heal their mortal wounds, and for a long while Yavanna sang alone in the shadows. Yet even as hope failed and her song faltered, till Perion bore at last upon a leafless bough one great flower of silver, and Laurelin a single fruit of gold. These Yavanna took, and then the trees died, and their lifeless stems stand yet in Valinor, a memorial of vanished joy. But the flower and the fruit Yavanna gave to Aule, and Manwë hallowed them, and Aule and his people made vessels to hold them and preserve their radiance, as is said in the Silmarillion, the song of the sun and moon. These vessels the Valar gave to Varda, that they might become lamps of heaven, outshining the ancient stars, being nearer to Arda, and she gave them power to traverse the lower regions of Ilmen, and set them to voyage upon appointed courses above the girdle of the earth, from the west unto the east, and to return. Now, for all the valid criticism that I heap upon Fëanor, for all the warranted beating of the Fëanor Piñata, it is also worth noting that his marring, his fall, is most definitely a thing to mourn. And the Valar do precisely that, seeing in his fall something as equally tragic as the loss of the trees. And they're right. If Fëanor had been a decent guy, think of all the amazing things he might have accomplished. Imagine a Fëanor not consumed by pride, one who willingly surrenders the Silmarils to restore the trees, not knowing the gems have already been stolen and his father killed. He ends up becoming king of the Noldor, but instead of going into self-imposed overreactive exile, Maybe he's sent by the Valar to Middle-earth to begin preparations for an all-out assault on Morgoth to be assisted by the Valar. His sons, not sworn to an idiotic oath, an oath that Tolkien himself called blasphemous, live their long elvish lives, and Maedhros keeps both of his hands. Who knows what they accomplish in their long lives, not wasted in a doomed pursuit of the Silmarils. And yet, the nature of Spibimi, go back to week 6, Silmarillion Saturday if you need more on that, means that even the acts of Fëanor began in evil rebellion will work towards the good, and that beauty not before conceived will be seen. Still, evil is evil, and both Manwë's statement and Mandos's reminder can be simultaneously true. Now, at the end, we get a teaser of what this chapter is all about, the sun and the moon. We're going to learn more about them next week and talk about them then as well. But for now, folks, that does it for this week's Silmarillion Saturday. Thank you for joining me. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, a bonus weekly episode, and a lot more. And folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @TolkienTimes on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.